Some endings don't come with arguments or slammed doors. They arrive quietly, through small details, deliberate silence, and the moment you realize you're done explaining yourself. Today's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about noticing the signs we ignore when we still hope things can be fixed, and why sometimes the strongest response isn't confrontation. It's walking away and letting the truth speak for itself. Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. The dishwasher was still warm when she walked in. That's the first thing she noticed. Not the silence. Not the missing coat from the hook. Not the wedding photo that usually sat on the mantel. Nope. The dishwasher. Because she hates when I run it in the evening. Says it interrupts her mental wind down. So yeah, I ran it. Twice. Once to clean the dishes. Once to make a point. She stood there in the doorway, still holding her little beige clutch bag. That dumb little rectangle she only ever took out when she was dressing for someone else. She looked around like she had stepped into a stranger's home. Everything gleamed. The chrome on the faucet. The freshly vacuumed carpet. I'd even polished the TV remote. Not a single sock in sight. Not a single me in sight, either. And that's when it hit her. Not the silence. Not even the missing wedding band, which I left dangling from the neck of the empty wine bottle we opened on our honeymoon and never finished. It hit her when she saw the plunger. I'll explain. There was this stupid fight we had last year. She was mad I left the plunger next to the toilet. Said it ruined the vibe of the bathroom. I told her, well, if the vibe clogs, you'll be glad it's there. She didn't laugh. Anyway, when I left, I brought everything. Socks, drawers, USB cables, sentimental trash, all of it. But I intentionally left the plunger, front and center, on the countertop, with a bow on it. Bright blue, birthday style. Why? Because that thing has been through everything. It stuck with us through the flood, the party disaster of 2021, and the time her sister clogged the guest toilet and blamed me. That plunger was more faithful than her text history. So I left it. That was my goodbye. And judging by how she dropped her keys, slumped against the fridge, and whispered my name like a question she didn't study for, it worked. She had dinner with her boss. He probably ordered for her. Probably said some witty crap about wine legs, and laughed like a guy who always gets the girl in the end. But when she came back, all she got was a lemon-scented apartment, and a note in the freezer. You should probably defrost your heart next. She didn't cry, not right away. She just stood there with the fridge humming behind her, and that ridiculous bow-tied plunger staring her in the face. She blinked a few times, like she was rebooting, like the world was suddenly running a different operating system, and she couldn't find the menu anymore. Her phone was in her hand. I know because I watched it light up from across the street. Yes, I stayed. Not for long. Just enough to see if she'd react. Not because I wanted to go back. I didn't. I needed to see her face when she realized this wasn't a fight. This was an ending. The difference is that in a fight, someone wins. In an ending, someone disappears. She paced once, twice. Open the freezer. Read the note. You should probably defrost your heart next. She actually smiled at that. Smiled. Like I was some kind of adorable idiot who just stormed out with feelings instead of furniture. And then she sat on the armrest of the couch like nothing had happened. That's when I called. Not from my number. Burner. Her phone rang for 7 seconds. Then it stopped. I watched as she stared at the screen. Didn't answer. Just tilted her head and watched the name vanish. She knew. She knew it was me. She called me overly sensitive the first time I got upset about the way she said Grant's name. Yeah, his real name is Grant. I won't bother changing it. He doesn't deserve a fake one. She said I was imagining things. That it was refreshing to work with someone who understood her. I asked if he was married. She said, that's not really relevant. That was 3 weeks ago. Back in the apartment, she finally moved. Opened the bedroom door. That's where she really paused. I had made the bed perfectly. We're talking hotel-level tight corners. The pillows fluffed like clouds that had never known dreams. And on top of the sheets, I left something folded. Her old hoodie. The one she used to wear when we watched trash TV and shared popcorn straight from the bowl. The one she hadn't touched since she started going to client mixers. She sat down on the edge of the bed like the weight of everything just decided to land all at once. No more clicking heels. No more power voice. Just Mallory. Small. Still. She opened the hoodie slowly, like it might bite. Inside the pocket, a single receipt. From her favorite Italian place. One we used to go to before she got too busy for carbs. Dated 2 nights ago. 2 entrees. one bottle of red, paid for by Grant, and her initials scribbled on the tip line. I wasn't supposed to have it. She wasn't supposed to leave it in her coat, but I found it, and it said more than her mouth ever did. So I left it for her. No yelling, no confrontation, just evidence, and silence, and me, finally done folding her lies. The receipt was still in her hand when the voicemail notification popped up. She didn't play it. Not immediately. She just stared at the screen like she could will the words to change. Or maybe she was deciding whether it was worth hearing my voice again. But I know her better than she thinks. She'd always listen. Eventually. Curiosity was her first language. She didn't know what I said in the message, but I knew exactly what I was doing when I left it. 38 seconds. Calm voice. Just enough edge to keep her guessing whether I knew everything, or just enough. I said her name once. Then I said, "You were always better at deleting things than explaining them." Click. No goodbye. That was it. I wanted to say more. About the late-night workouts that smelled like hotel soap. About how her laugh changed around Grant. About how I found the second toothbrush in her gym bag. But no, she didn't get explanations. She gave me none. I owed her the same. What she didn't know, yet, was that I'd found the folder. The one buried 3 layers deep on our shared cloud storage. Labeled Q3 budget slides. Inside were no slides. No spreadsheets. Just photos. 2 cocktails. A balcony. Her bare shoulder in a hotel mirror. And Grant's watch on the sink beside her phone. She never even bothered to use a different account. That's what gutted me. Not the cheating. Not even the lying. The laziness. I wasn't worth a passcode. So I left everything spotless. But I made sure she was the one who had to clean up what mattered, the story. The version of us she'd have to retell now. To her family. Her friends. Maybe even to Grant. Let her explain the plunger. Let her explain the note in the freezer. Let her explain why her husband walked out without a fight, but left behind every reason to regret it. It took her 13 minutes to call me back. I know because I counted. Not out of spite. Not exactly. More like curiosity. I was sitting in the car 2 blocks down, engine off, lights dimmed, holding my second burner phone in one hand and her contact page on the other. When the call came in, I stared at it, watched it buzz, and I let it ring until it stopped. She texted 2 minutes later. "Linden, please, just tell me where you are." I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail to someone else. Someone she didn't know I'd spoken to. Here's the part Mallory never thought I'd piece together. She wasn't as careful as she believed. You'd think a woman who kept a fake folder named Q3 budget slides would be smarter about covering her tracks, but she missed one detail, her coworker Emily. The one she pretended to despise. A few days before I left, I ran into Emily at the pharmacy of all places. She was buying cold medicine and looked half dead. I was grabbing toothpaste. We made small talk. Then she said something that didn't sit right. "I hope she finally told you." She said she would. I blinked. "Told me what?" Emily froze, eyes wide. Then she backtracked. "Oh, just about the promotion thing. At work. I probably shouldn't have said anything. Sorry." But I knew that tone. That microsecond of panic. I didn't press her, not then. But that night, when Mallory came home late again, I asked her how work was. She smiled. Said nothing had changed. So I messaged Emily later. From an anonymous account. I didn't accuse. I just said, she didn't tell me. Tell me what? Emily didn't reply for a day. Then she sent 6 words. Check the photos on the cloud. That was it. That was the beginning of the end. And now, as Mallory sat in our spotless apartment, probably going through every moment trying to find where she slipped up, I was texting someone else, someone I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. My brother. Mallory never liked him. Said he was judgmental. Unstable. Maybe. But he was the one who warned me a year ago that something was off. That she looked at me like I was furniture, not a person. I told him to shut up. We didn't talk after that. But I messaged him now. You were right. I'm out. Just don't say I told you so. He replied almost immediately. I won't. But she's not done. Be careful. That part chilled me. Because he wasn't just talking about heartbreak. He was talking about secrets. The kind that don't stay folded in a hoodie pocket. And I had a feeling Mallory's dinner with Grant was just the part she wanted me to find. The next morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls, 6 texts, and 1 email titled, I deserve an explanation too. That one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly her. rewriting the script halfway through the movie and acting like she was the one who'd been wronged. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The subject line said enough. I was staying at my brother's old apartment. He hadn't lived there in years, but the lease was still in his name, and the place was barely furnished. One mattress on the floor, a folding chair, and a lamp with a crooked neck. It felt like the kind of place you wait for the world to forget you. And for now, that was fine. I had food. I had power. I had time. What I didn't have was peace. Around 9 a.m., I went back into our cloud account. Not to torture myself. I told myself I was done with that, but to see if she'd noticed anything missing. Maybe she would have locked it, changed the passwords, deleted the folder. But when I logged in, it was still there. All of it. In fact, she'd added a new file. A document, untitled. I clicked it. It was blank. Except for one sentence, dead center. He's not who you think he is. No name. No context. Just that. I sat there staring at it for 10 minutes, wondering if it was bait or warning. And then I realized something. The file hadn't been created from her device. It was uploaded from his. Grant. She never shared that folder with him. Not the one with our personal data. That meant he had her login. Or her device. Or worse, he'd had access for a while. My chest went tight. I closed the laptop and stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. The air in that room felt thin, like I was breathing through a straw. My brother wasn't home. He was off doing God knows what. But his neighbor across the hall cracked open her door as I stepped out. Just a sliver, barely an inch. At first, I thought I imagined it. Then it opened wider. And a woman I didn't recognize looked at me and said, "You're not her usual visitor." I froze. "Excuse me." She nodded toward the hallway. That apartment. She used to come by. Blonde. Designer bag. Left in a hurry most times. Noticed she always parked across the street and waited 10 minutes before coming up. My blood turned to ice. Mallory had been here. At this exact apartment. Before I ever set foot in it. Before I knew I'd even need a place to run to. So why? Why this address? Why this building? And then a terrible thought crept in, slow and sticky like a leak behind drywall. What if I wasn't hiding from her? What if she wanted me here? The neighbor didn't say anything else. She just gave me a tight-lipped smile and shut the door like she hadn't just tossed a grenade into everything I thought I understood. I stood in the hallway for a while, listening to the hum of the old building's pipes, trying to figure out how far back this went. Before the affair. Before Grant. Before the night she went to dinner and came back to find the life she used to know wiped clean. I went back inside, opened the laptop again, and this time didn't check the cloud or my messages. I opened my own files. The ones I kept backed up separately. I started searching for patterns. Photos. Metadata. Locations. It sounds paranoid, but I was good at this stuff. My job might be boring, but data doesn't lie. It just waits patiently for someone to notice. I pulled up an old folder, anniversary_trip2, and checked the geotags on the images from 3 years ago. We were in Charleston. Supposedly. But one of the photos Mallory had taken of me at a market had a mismatch in the GPS coordinates. It said Knoxville. I remembered the day clearly. She'd said she was taking the photo while we walked back from the bakery. But she must have uploaded the wrong one. Or maybe not. I dug deeper. Every single trip we'd taken, there were location inconsistencies in random places. Small ones. Off by a few hundred feet, or tagged at weird times. Like she was somewhere else, uploading later, replacing things. And I hadn't noticed. I was always the one behind the wheel, the one carrying bags, booking rentals. She just smiled for the pictures and said, "Let me handle captions." And she had. For years. But something else jumped out now. There were 4 photos, all selfies she took alone, that had a small, barely visible object in the background. A table lamp. The same one. Same crack on the shade. Same tilt. Taken at different times, different locations. I got up and scanned the room. My eyes landed on the lamp beside the folding chair in the corner. My brother's old lamp. The one that had been there long before I arrived. I stared at it for a long time. There were only 2 possibilities. Either this was some insane coincidence, or she had access to this apartment before I did, and she had used it. Repeatedly. To lie. To hide. To be someone else. I sat down slowly, feeling the weight of something larger than infidelity begin to take shape. This wasn't just about me, and I was starting to wonder if it ever had been. I couldn't stop staring at that lamp. Not because it was unusual, but because of how normal it was. A cracked lampshade with a cheap brass base, the kind you'd find in a yard sale or a dentist's waiting room. But that's what made it so impossible to ignore now. It was there, in those 4 photos. Photos I thought were from vacations, trips, memories I'd tucked away as real. Now they looked like rehearsals, like scenes she staged for someone else's benefit, not mine. I called my brother. I didn't text, didn't email. I needed to hear his voice. It rang once, then again. I was about to hang up when he finally answered, a little too casually, like he'd been waiting. You figured something out, huh? I didn't even ask how he knew. My voice came out colder than I intended. How long have you known she was using this place? There was a pause, just long enough to confirm everything I didn't want to believe. He exhaled like someone about to say something that would cost him. I didn't know at first. She said she needed a quiet space to think. This was back when you two were planning that second attempt at marriage counseling. She told me she couldn't think straight at home, that she felt watched. I almost laughed. Watched. The irony. She was the one staging photos with fake backgrounds and lies in the metadata. She had keys. I gave her mine, he admitted. Just for a few days. I wasn't even staying there much. Figured you knew. I didn't, I said, my voice flat. I didn't know she was using this place to cheat. But that was the wrong assumption. Because what he said next shifted everything. She wasn't with Grant. Not then. She was meeting someone else. I went silent. My brain couldn't keep up. There was always an assumption, an obvious villain. Grant. The fancy boss. The dinners. The wine. But what if he wasn't the only one? Or worse, what if he wasn't involved at all back then? My brother kept talking, his voice low now. I didn't want to say anything, but one night I came back early. She didn't know I'd be there. I walked in, and she was sitting at the table. Not alone. He stopped. Who? I asked, trying to keep my hand from shaking. I didn't see his face. He was already walking out. All I saw was the back of his head and the coat, dark green, military style. Tall, clean cut, but not someone from her office. Not unless they wear combat boots to client meetings. I sank into the folding chair, the same one she might have sat in while lying to me with perfect posture. She told me it was just someone she was helping through a rough time, he added quietly. Said I was imagining it. And like an idiot, I believed her. The apartment was quiet, but my ears rang with the sound of truth twisting out of shape. Grant might have been the distraction. The real story had been buried long before him, hidden in plain sight. And now I had a new question, one I wasn't ready to answer. If Mallory had someone else, who the hell was I married to all this time? 2 days passed before I heard from her again. I didn't reach out, didn't check the cloud folder, didn't even look at the burner phone. I just let the weight of it all settle. The kind of weight that shifts from your chest to your shoulders once you realize you're not responsible for someone else's mess. I stayed in the apartment one more night, then packed my bag. Not out of fear, not because I was running, but because I didn't need to be surrounded by ghosts anymore. The space had served its purpose. It gave me answers. It gave me perspective. And it gave me the chance to see Mallory not as a villain, but as someone lost in a maze of her own making. Before I left, I took one last look at the lamp. I didn't touch it. I just smiled, shook my head, and turned off the light. I ended up driving north. No plan. No GPS. Just music and the sound of tires on pavement. I stayed in small towns. Talked to strangers at diners. Let the hours pass without checking the clock. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a text. I wasn't hoping for a change. I was just existing. And it felt good. About a week into my trip, I got an email. From her. Subject, no more excuses. I opened it slowly, half expecting manipulation, half expecting regret. But what I read surprised me. She didn't defend herself. She didn't explain everything. She just said, "You were right. About everything. I don't know why I did half of it, but I do know you deserved better. I hope you find it." That was it. No attachments. No pleas. Just a quiet acknowledgement that she was never the partner I needed. And that was enough. I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because I'd already moved past the version of me who needed closure from her. I had something better now, space, clarity, freedom. Eventually, I settled in a small lakeside town a few hours from where we used to live. I rented a tiny cottage, got a job teaching data analytics at a local community college. The students were curious, honest, sometimes brutally so, which I liked. There was no pretending with them. A few months later, I met someone. Not in some dramatic, cinematic way. Just at a bookstore. She dropped a stack of poetry books. I helped her pick them up. We both apologized too many times, and then we started talking. Her name was Claire. She didn't wear expensive perfume. She didn't rehearse her laughter. And she never made me feel like I had to earn her attention. We took it slow. We're still taking it slow. But the thing is, I no longer flinch when someone says they're working late. I don't skin receipts for handwriting. I don't wonder what I'm missing behind a smile. Because now, I know what peace sounds like. And it doesn't come with answers. It comes with the absence of needing them. So yeah, she had dinner with her boss. She came home to a spotless apartment and an empty life. But I walked into something better. Something real. Something mine. And for the first time in years, I don't feel like disappearing. Please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all.